Hey everyone, this is John from Beautify here, coming at you live at ViewConf 2020 in Toronto. Well, it's actually online, but it's for Toronto. This is the third year that we have been invited back to talk about Beautify and the progress that the team is making, and we're really excited to share some of that with you, so I'll go ahead and just get right into the topics for the day. So what's new in Beautify 3? Well, it's been completely rebuilt using the composition API that is a flagship feature for the new version of Vue. In the next version, you're going to be able to define global default properties for all of the components in the framework. You're going to be able to define overarching global framework changes and style changes all from a config file. We've got a brand new layout system that takes what the current one does really good and makes it better, giving the user additional ways to customize their Beautify application and to tap in to the features that are, in often case, only used specifically by components. We've got massive overhauls to our testing system, including new E2E tests that are going to be with Cypress to help us with visual regressions. We're normalizing the CSS helper utility names. We have a few that have been left over from legacy, and we're going to be moving those all in the same naming convention. And finally, we've got some new tooling and development productivity changes and features that are going to be coming to you all in the form of Vue plugins for version 2 as well as version 3. But keep in mind, everything that I'm going to talk about today is still pre-alpha. We have been working with Vue 3 composition API for quite a while now, but this stuff, while it is still set in stone, or not, this stuff is not set in stone, but we are pretty confident that things won't change. And now let's go ahead and get right into the first thing I want to talk about today, which is the new composition API and how the team is moving from mix-ins to composables. Composables being the new terminology for the abstracted, duplicated functionality that we currently propagate through the Beautify components using mix-ins, but that are ultimately going to be the building blocks for version 3. So let's take a look at a regular Beautify 2 mix-in. Now this doesn't include all of the information that is on the scrollable mix-in, but enough to portray. We've got some information here that we're going to share. We've got properties, we have a computed property, we have a data property. I just realized that that interface is incorrect, so I'll have to fix the example. Computed threshold should actually be inside of a computed property. All right, but we're not going to restart again because it's getting late. All right, and then we have our data variables. Now, all of this stuff translates to version 3, but why is what we're doing not good? Well, at the moment, well, it's not good because it obfuscates where the functionality comes from. Right? This is why mix-ins are dated and are kind of being pushed out, because it has issues with name collision, has issues with unused functionality, it has issues with contributors being able to work on the framework. There's a lot of functionality that gets hidden behind mix-ins that, as the deeper you get, becomes harder to reason about. Oh, there we go. And I don't know where that went. Look at that, I pressed the wrong button. Here we go. Jilson said that bloopers are encouraged, so there's a blooper. But yeah, so the current system, when you extend the mix-ins, well, looking over on the right side, we have our computed is scrolling down property. This is using functionality that exists within the scrollable mix-in, but we don't know where it comes from. Now, in this case, they are named adequately, so we can kind of guess, and this is a very simple example, but when we get to larger components like data table, calendar, some of the input components that have multiple expanded shared functionality, it becomes really hard to debug. So what we did with version 3 is said, okay, well, how does this translate? What moves from left to right? Well, using the new composition API, moving the core functionality of our mixins to small, composable, reusable functions. Now, the idea is, with these small functions, we're able to further reduce the scope of responsibility of features. We want to make the framework as lean as possible. We want it to be really good at one thing. And in this particular instance, we want the scroll composable to be really good at handling whatever scrolling stuff it needs to do. Now, one of the great things that comes along with this and the new version of Vue is an improved TypeScript definition support. Now, right now, we do support TypeScript in Beautify, but it took a lot of really smart people a lot of time to figure out how to do that. And it's one of the specific, some of the complexities that we encountered in converting even version 1.5 to 2.0 to TypeScript came from the same reasons that you don't have a class-based public reactivity system in Vue 3. It's composition function-based. And there's a bug. So this improved TypeScript support means that we're able to implement the way that we do development in a way that doesn't require very, very complex type definitions. We're also using the latest ES features, including null coalescing operator and optional chaining. Just some additional tools to make our development process easier, and then to take, again, what we've already done over the course of the past 4 years, and then just make it a little bit better, make it a little bit more refined. And the great part about the current state of the framework is that it really does convert pretty well over to the composition API. We have a lot of really exciting implementations that we cannot wait to implement this functionality into. And to give you an example of what that looks like is we'll take this Beautify 2 example. So in this Beautify 2 example here on the left, we're importing our scrollable mixin, just as we showed before. Now in the component mounts, we say, hey, log whatever the value of this.active is. Well, in this particular case, this.active is equal to false. Now we don't know where that comes from. We don't understand anything about it. Just as I said before, it's obfuscated. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that the functionality is transparent. We want to make sure that Beautify represents the modularity that comes in the new version of Vue. By taking the core features and abstracted functionality that exists within our current mixins and breaking them up into reusable, composable functions. These composable functions have better defined scope of responsibility. They're faster. They have one job and they do it really well. And they are composed in the exact same manner of sharing functionality that we did in version 2, but in a way that is not only way easier to handle with TypeScript, but just overall way easier to maintain. We don't have to worry about naming collisions. We define the data that's going to be used. We define how it's going to be worded. We don't have to worry about implementing a computed property with the same name as a data property that exists within the same mixin. Those don't exist anymore. And I said it before and I'll keep saying it, the way that the composition API is set up, at least from an author point of view, it is the perfect set of circumstances. It gives us the perfect amount of flexibility, and with our existing design process, we have been able to really make some good headway in what I would consider a short amount of time, according to the size of the Beautify as the framework. So moving on, let's talk about layouts. One of the one of my favorite features of the framework and one of the older features of the framework. The layout system in Beautify is what makes it easy to take an application bar, take a navigation drawer, and take a footer, and very easily and fastly have a content area that reacts to whatever you're giving it for its layout. So taking a standard layout, and again, this layout it has more components on it and does look more complex than maybe a super default one may look like in Beautify, but the reason why I put it here is to kind of illustrate there's some flexibility there. The props, it's simple, it's flexible, it's semantic. The usage of the app word, it says, okay, hey, this correlates it with the v-app component. We do have some proprietary names like clipped left and clipped right and clipped, but these are using a terminology within the material design specification and are again ultimately designed to be semantic. But the problem is that even though they support a large number of use cases, we have a lot of flexibility with how the layouts can be created using the components. They are still very tightly coupled together. The functionality of the Beautify layout and the components that interact with it were built on top of each other in the first version. Like I said earlier on, the Beautify layout, we call them services now, the Beautify layout was one of the very first features that I actually developed probably over 4 years ago in about July of 2016. And it has made some changes over the years, but for the most part has stayed the same. And when we got into situations where we wanted to make advanced layouts, and to clarify, when I'm talking about advanced layouts, I'm not talking about that there is a lot or a little of components, but it's where we come into these very customized situations. We have these very specific requirements that are possible within Beautify, but not always supported by default, not always a very clear, easy path going forward. So the code that you see right here is just a small contrived example to show if I want to take a mini navigation drawer and I want to have it stacked to the left of a regular navigation drawer, I have to get kind of creative. I have to create because the layout components in version 2 are the containers for the layout. They are integrated directly with them. And this is really good for a lot of things. It's helped create a very solid baseline to build off of. But really, how do we make it better? Well, let's see if we can change the structure. Let's take our previous example. If we break that down and then we were to try to say, okay, how would that layout look if it were not tightly coupled to those components? How would we represent that layout without using the specifically coupled functionality of clipping left or clipping right, clipping at all? And this is where the layout component comes in. Now right now, vLayout is an existing component in the framework. It was part of the original version 1 of the grid. And for version 3, as it stands, we are going to be repurposing it, taking its name, because we like the name, and making the layout in the application the combo of components that creates the buckets that we put ultimately our navigation drawer in, or our footer, or system bar, or bottom navigation. And once we take that and actually represent it in a special custom component that has completely decoupled itself from individual component implementations, vNavigation drawer no longer cares about its layout because it is going to use an already implemented, well-scoped and well-defined feature. It allows the user to expand how they interact with the Beautify systems. We want to make sure that when we make something in the framework, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, it does one thing and it does it really well. This has served us over the years. It has helped actually the framework survive with a mix-in strategy of components that sometimes share 4 to 5 to 6 different sets of obfuscated functionality that we have been very wanting to get rid of over the years, but has definitely provided us with an accurate depiction of how functionality can be shared between multiple pieces. We just were doing it in the only way that was available at the time. But now we want to make sure that layouts, as well as every other feature, as much as possible within the framework, modular in the same sense that you have modular functions that you can import from Vue in version 3. We want the layouts to be a standalone feature. We want the data tables to be a standalone feature. We want everything in Beautify to be a la carte, or take what you want. Now this already kind of happens with the Beautify loader and automatic tree shaking, but we want to make sure that the layouts can be pulled individually and be functional without the need of, for example, using a navigation drawer in order to obtain access to that left container on the screen. Now, a couple things that are still in development that are not completely fleshed out, but I thought were worth mentioning here are the future version or the next version of Beautify will be able to support either 0 or more of VApp components. As it stands right now, VApp is the kind of entry gate to Beautify functionality. It is very tightly coupled with the framework, specifically because of support for iPhone and iOS. Trust me, I would have much rather have not had it from the get-go. But now moving forward, we are able to decouple the application from the components. Using some new features that are available in Vue 3, we're able to shift some custom functionality that we had before to accommodate what is ultimately existed by default, now portals. We're giving the user the ability to hook in to the services, the Beautify core, and listen for changes. In this particular instance, layout changes. But the idea is that every single service that is available or added onto the Beautify core is something that the user can hook into and if not expand, at least access. We're improving our SSR and Nuxt support. The layout system is being built day one to just simply work properly with SSR and with Nuxt and with booting up an application that has a predetermined viewport size so that we can do things like automatically set the breakpoint when the application loads, so that we can do things like automatically apply the theme and ensure that everything on the SSR side, hydration, or client side works exactly the same. Everything is being built specifically with the intention to integrate with these services. We work with Nuxt right now, we work with SSR, but we can do better, and that's what version 3 is. And ultimately, and this isn't in development right now, but it's something that we are kicking around, is the possibility of new interface options for users. Leaving the flexibility of, let's say, a single component to define a layout that you want, and then give the user slots to be able to access their predefined layout containers. We have a lot of opportunity available to enrich the options that are available when creating the custom layouts, and I'm really excited for some of the stuff that we're going to be able to show in the future. All right, next up we're going to talk a little bit about testing. So right now we currently use Test Utils. We converted when we upgraded from version 1.5 to 2.0. Along with our TypeScript changes, we moved from Avoriaz, which is made by the same original author as Test Utils, to Test Utils. Now, as we make this transition to version 3, we are going to maintain using Test Utils, but we're reevaluating all of the tests that we have. We're making sure that we add new unit tests where they need to be, that we don't add unit tests for no reason. We get rid of duplicate, we get rid of superfluous unit tests that only offer to add confusion as we maintenance the framework moving into the future. Same with the components reducing their scope of responsibility, same thing with the tests. Now this is going to naturally happen with the composable structure for version 3. It is more prominent. It is a more prominent issue in the current version due to the fact of how mix-ins work. But ultimately, we want to make sure that our tests are just as efficient as the code they're testing. And that's why we move to our next exciting adventure in the framework for testing is Cypress. Now the team has been toying with this over the course of the year, and we're working with, we've brought Jess on, who, Jessica Sachs, who is at Cypress, I believe. I'm probably going to get, she's definitely at Cypress, definitely. But working to make sure that what we're doing is as efficient as possible, and that the integration of Beautify and Vue in a visual regression testing environment it all works. So we are building the next version and integrating the E2E at the same time. We want to make sure that we are able to test not only the functionality but the visual importance or the visual continuity of the framework without having small regressions. The idea is that this is going to reduce side effects from changes. We do have regressions, everyone does. With as large as a framework that we have become, it is often sometimes very difficult to 100% not cause a regression in some areas of the framework just because of how it was built. Now, in the new version, we are focusing completely on being able to improve the E2E experience for all users. It's something that we have only briefly played around with, but nothing that we've ever fully implemented to where we are on the same page with all of the users that are implementing this. Now, this also means that for companies that implement Beautify in a testing environment pipeline that do their own visual regression testing, maybe with Cypress or Selenium or something of the sort, making sure that the features that we provide in the public are easy to test in that regard. We often recommend not testing Beautify functionality when you implement it, but E2E is a whole different ballgame, and we want to make sure that all of our components, from selects to data tables to calendars, that all of those components are just as testable visually by developers implementing Beautify as it is for us. Next thing I want to talk about are CSS Utility Classes. Now, this is kind of a quick one, but the text and background color styles of the framework are of the beginning of its creation, very similar to the layout system, and they follow BIM syntax. Now, as the framework has progressed over the years, we have moved to majority of our text utility classes already implementing what we consider a normalized naming structure. And in version 3, we're going to go ahead and pull the plug on that, moving everything over to a, as opposed to a double dash, to a single dash, and having a more unified naming convention system for utility classes, to be more descriptive, to be more declarative, so that when users are implementing custom utility classes, they're not asking themselves, what is the difference between dash dash and dash in these helper classes? We want to make sure it's less confusing for users overall. All right, so that's pretty quick. So now let's run through the ecosystem. And I'm coming up on time here, so hopefully they can just cut some stuff out. And I will try to be somewhat brief in this regard, because I've talked about this at VueConf Austin earlier this year, before all of the craziness in the world started happening. And I talked a lot about our plugins and our presets that are coming for version 2. Now these are still coming for version 2, but in addition, they're also being developed alongside of our version 3 development. So everything that I mentioned before that is available in Beautify 2 installation presets is going to be available in version 3. Now, quickly to overview that, some of those features being, whenever you install a new Vue application, you select options for what you would like to have installed on your package, and at the end of it, it's going to ask you, would you like to save this for future use? Well, that future use save is actually going into a local preset file that is actually functionality that we as developers can hook into and just give you a defined list of what to install. So there are lots of features that we're putting together that give a user a development experience that is greater than what is available with a default installation, which would be simply install or creating a new Vue app with the Vue CLI and then doing Vue add Beautify. And the next section I'm going to talk about is the global defaults, which is one of the flagship features of the framework. But while you're sitting there, since I'm assuming you're probably at a computer and hopefully you have a terminal available, you can go ahead and test out the Vue CLI preset, or the Beautify Vue CLI preset, using npx, one command line. Don't have to even have Vue CLI installed, and you can go ahead and take a look at. Now we only have the base preset available, but there is a lot more coming very, very soon. Alright, so let's move on to the global defaults. This is one of the most exciting features of the new version, and the team has been really hard at work at putting together something that would fix what our current pattern is. Our current pattern is that we give the users this situation where they are potentially going to fail because they have to duplicate their functionality throughout their application. If the user doesn't create a system, their own system, that allows them to have some default prop designation, it's really difficult to keep continuity throughout the app. You have to remember, okay, every single button I need to make sure I color primary or it's outlined. You know, this causes some fragmentation within the application. It's very difficult for the user. It can be very difficult between teams, especially if you don't have an agreed upon design system to use. And while there are existing patterns to solve this, they require more from the user than what I think should be necessary. You know, the current pattern is you would create a custom component, wrap a V button, define some defaults, and then implement that component within your application. And while we still will recommend that, we still think that it's a good pattern, we don't think that it should be the default experience. So what's the new pattern look like? Looks like nothing. And that's the idea. We want to make sure that all of these settings are defined at a top level using our standard Beautify config. Now, when I say you can set the default value of any component property in the framework, you can do that at the top level in the Beautify config file. So the idea with our global framework options is that not only could you set the properties for your components that you're going to use, you can also define some overarching global framework changes, such as, well, I want to use all dense inputs. Well, normally if you want to do that and you want to utilize wrapping a component around a Beautify input, you would have to wrap it for each component that you want to duplicate that dense behavior in. Believe me, I've done it. And that's why we're moving to this. We want to have a white label centric, design agnostic approach to working with Beautify. Now, beyond some minor, small differences in functionality between components, between frameworks, it's mostly a visual decision for the user. It doesn't matter if Beautify has an awesome calendar if the way that everything is styled is in a system that is not compatible with your job or your branding. And when you take away that design layer, you're left with the functionality layer, which is the heart of what Beautify has always been good at. Now, the idea is, over the years people have asked, hey, are you going to implement, let's just say, Bootstrap into Beautify? We want to have the Beautify experience, but with the Bootstrap style. Now, you can do that now, but it's not as fun, it's not as clean, it's not as easy. But with the introduction of these new global defaults, the user, the community, us, whoever, can take this default functional component framework, this white label framework, and apply their own skin to it. These new opportunities allow us to expand the versatility of the framework by focusing on what makes it the best, which is the available features, its ease of use, and then take the aspect that is what I would argue most controversial, is that it seems like it's a monumentous task to change the design aspects of the framework, and move that to a style layer. So in Beautify 3, we're separating the style layer from the functionality layer and paving way for an application generator. Now, I'm not going to go into any more about the application generator other than the fact that you as a developer will be able to go in and design your own custom framework styles using the tried and true, tested and hardened core functionality that comes with the Beautify framework. But you don't have to. We've got a default material design. Now, I know everyone is probably wondering, well, when is this going to come out? And the honest answer is probably not as soon as you want. But we're very confident that the timeline that we have for the project is in line with proper expectations to deliver a product that is worthy of the Beautify name. Right now, the framework has exploded in popularity, which is amazing, but has led to the issue of maintenance. We have thousands of issues that people address with the framework, and we have a lot of inadequacies for solving this problem. With the new version of Beautify, we want to make sure that out of the box, the user has the best possible experience, the most feature-rich set of tools with the most expansive interface for users to take the framework and make it do what they want. So hopefully all that really excites you, so when I hit this button, you're not going to get really upset. But Beautify 3, it's a large code base. It's a Herculean effort. It's broken up into multiple phases, and we're hoping to get it out to you by summer 2021. We want to have the alpha out this year, something that is usable that contains a baseline of the framework that is representative of what we want to do going forward, that builds on the concepts that we have put together over the years. We want to make sure that we get this one right. Version 1.5 was a disaster as far as I'm concerned. Version 2 was a step in the right direction. For version 3, we want to go ahead and just cut the rope. We want to make sure that when we build this, we have a foundation that we know is protected for the future. And we also understand that Vue 3 is new, and there will be time for adoption. So we believe this gives us an opportunity to at least witness some of the maturing of the next version of Vue, while also still delivering on a quality product that once released will have a ecosystem ready to go with it, that has an upgrade guide. It has all the tools that are necessary for users to take their application from the lowest of 1.5 all the way up to the newest version. And we believe that doing that and delivering later than Q1 is better than delivering something early that may not be as good of a product. So that was my presentation. So I made it through. That's pretty cool. I can't tell you how many times I've restarted this video. I'm at 37 minutes right now, and I'm sure they're probably going to have to cut a lot of this out. But thank you everyone for taking the opportunity, or giving me the opportunity, to share with you the new and exciting things that the team is working on. These are just but a small little preview of everything that is going to be coming in the few months ahead of us, as far as new features that we're going to talk about, new functionality, things to test, improvements still to the old Beautify that we're working on. Version 3 does not signal the end of version 2. We will have long-term support, just as we did for version 1.5. And we're really excited about hearing what you have to say regarding this. I believe there is a virtual booth system that I am not connected to, but will be, where assuming that you're going to be able to interact. But we also have our Discord community. Definitely encourage everyone to join and collaborate with other Beautify developers. And then also you can follow me at Zero Skills on Twitter, also at Beautify.js to follow the framework on Twitter. And then finally, my name is John Leider, and this has been Beautify 3 Titan. And then at this point, everyone's clapping, I'm assuming. Yay, Bootstrap Beautify, right? And then cut.